Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Hello, magnificent math teachers. I am Mr. Cody, and I am your K5 District Math Coach. And I am so excited to be your facilitator for today's session. A couple of ground rules. Please scan the QR code to access all of the resources that we will need for this session. At certain points in this presentation, you will need to pause the video and respond to some questions. Also, there is a link to join the Google Classroom that's titled 2019 Mathematics Course of Study Overview. You rock, let's go. If you cannot scan the QR code, no worries. Simply follow the link here. This will get you into the Padlet and you can work on the activities as we go. By the way, some of the activities in Padlet are on a Google Doc, so they may fill up quickly. So if you would, complete the activities also in the Google Classroom. And hey, don't forget to sign the sign-in sheet. This is your documentation that you participated in this session. Today, we will explore the 2019 Alabama Course of Study Mathematics Conceptual Framework. We will review 2020-2021 pacing guides. We will also understand the progression of addition and subtraction as well as the progression of multiplication. And lastly, we will examine the format and layout of the 2019 Alabama Course of Study. If you have downloaded the course of study, please turn to page Roman numeral 9. This is the acknowledgement page. Now, I know that you all know that we are transitioning from the 2016 revised mathematics course of study to the 2019 Alabama math course of study. It is titled the 2019 Alabama course of study because it was adopted December 12, 2019. At this time, I'm going to ask you to turn to page 1 in the course of study. This is the general introduction page. If you would please use a highlighter to highlight the big rocks. When I say big rocks, I am speaking of the big ideas, the aha moments, or simply things that stuck with you when you read that. You can pause the video at this time, and I will come back in about 5 minutes. And we're back. At this time, if you would, go back into your Padlet. Find the link for Poll Everywhere and respond to the prompt that asks you to list 3 to 5 big ideas, big rocks, or aha moments that you had when you read the general introduction. And we are back. Thank you all so much for participating in the Poll Everywhere survey. You all have generated some great responses. If you would look at the very last paragraph of the general introduction, and I'm going to simply read it to you because that is going to lead us into the very next slide. It goes as follows. Mastery of the standards enables students to build a solid foundation of knowledge, skills, and understanding in mathematics. To ensure student success, effective implementation of the 2019 Alabama Course of Study for Mathematics requires local education agencies to develop local curriculum guides utilizing the minimum required content of this document. Well, guess what? We did just that. This summer, we put together a team of magnificent math teachers to develop a pacing guide, a framework for you to implement into your instruction for the 2019-2020 school year. I would love to welcome Mr. Tyler Merriweather and Miss Rashandra French as they navigate you through a 5th grade pacing guide. Please give them your attention at this time.
Hey there, MPS 5th grade math teachers. Come join us as we embark on a journey as to how to navigate and make best use of the 5th grade math pacing guide for this school year. Featuring the authors of this document, Rashandra French and Tyler Merriweather. Hey there, MPS. It is Tyler Merriweather.
And Rashandra French.
Yes, and we're about to get ready to go over with you guys our pacing guide for the 2020-2021 school year and give you the ins and out of the pacing guide. Miss French, are you ready?
Let's go.
All right, so I'm going to be asking her a few questions about the pacing guide. You're welcome to add your own questions and we'll get them answered as quickly and as soon as possible. First things first, Miss French, how were you all able to complete the pacing guide virtually?
Well, we actually use the Google platform, Google Documents, and we were able to share our work as well as look at previous pacing guides that had been uploaded through MPS.
Awesome, awesome. Just looking at the pacing guide, tell me, as a 5th grade teacher, how is it organized and how do I go about navigating through the pacing guide?
As far as the organization, if you take a look at the standards, what we wanted to do, we wanted to go ahead and teach the skills that are considered essential or crucial skills for 5th grade that the students will have an opportunity to practice throughout the school year. If you take a look, you'll see that we've included a vocabulary section as well as some graphic organizers that teachers are able to use to help students better understand the vocabulary words.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I'm pulling up a couple of examples of the graphic organizers. I see that this is throughout the entire document. Why is this particular document throughout the entire document?
Because we think that it's very important for students to communicate mathematically. So if they're actually going to do math, they need to be able to speak the language.
Awesome, awesome. Now, do you have a favorite organizer that you like to use personally?
My favorite graphic organizer is, of course, the Venn diagram.
All
And
right.
I really also like to use the Frayer model.
So that would be this one, guys, the Venn diagram, and the other one would be the Frayer model. Awesome, awesome. So going back to the document, what is up with the digital links that I see here?
We wanted to make sure that we included some digital links because we know that we have some veteran teachers as well as some novice teachers. So we wanted to make sure that we included enough substance. So if they needed to maybe take a look at the material before they actually present it to the students, they're able to do so. Or they could also use some of the digital links to assist them in presenting the information to the students.
Awesome, awesome. I like. So navigating throughout the document, I also see this, it appears to be a link for a Go Math textbooks. Why is this important and what can it be used for as we go digital or possibly virtual learning?
I made sure that I included the digital link for the Go Math textbook that all students or all teachers are able to access according to chapters. This is very, very important if we are able to continue our education or instruction face-to-face. Teachers are actually able to pull these documents up on their smartboard and interact with them as the students are working through their textbooks.
Awesome. All right, well, just for fun, for kicks and giggles, I'm going to go ahead and click on the textbooks and see what actually happens once we open the link.
Okay.
All right, it takes us to Go Math. And at random, let me go ahead and click on one of these place value links, place value and whole numbers. Now, is this the 5th grade edition? Oh,
Yes, it is the 5th grade edition. And in that one link, you actually get the student workbook page, the consumable workbook page, as well as the standards practice workbook. So if you continue scrolling, you'll see that the standards practice page is also included right there.
awesome. Well, this seems to be good. So will students be able to access this via digital or virtual access?
Oh, of course. Teachers can actually include this link in their school on their Schoology pages, as well as teachers can also download these documents as PDF and place them into a Google Slides and make them fillable where students have to type or students are able to type their responses.
Ah, that is super nice. That is amazing. With that, let's go ahead and look at another part of the pacing guide in which you all have created. So we do see the grade level. What I did notice is that these patterns or blocks here are different. For example, this one is yellow, and as I scrolled down just a little bit more, I saw that this one was green. What is that about?
We made sure that we wanted that we separated each 9 weeks. So each 9 weeks has a different color. So first 9 weeks is yellow, and you can see that second 9 weeks is green.
Awesome. And these are the dates in which school will be operating, I'm assuming, for those 9 weeks?
Right, the grading periods, that's correct.
Cool. Now, what is up with this unit 4 multiplying decimals? And then I go into this one and it says unit 3 decimal place value. And it seems like each unit is different. What is the unit symbolic for?
The units actually represent the big idea.
Gotcha. Who came up with the units?
Tyler and I actually developed the units together. So I think in all there are maybe 13 units throughout the entire document.
All right. That is nice. Now, I had a quick question about these suggested days. I see that you all kind of allow for a little flexibility in the suggested days. How did you all determine this is how long it would take to teach this particular standard or standards?
We kind of used our prior knowledge. Both of us are current 5th grade teachers, 5th grade math teachers, and we just used what we know about students, the information that they're coming to us with maybe we allowed some time for some reteaching or some remediation lessons to take place. But again, these are just suggested days. Nothing is etched in stone.
Awesome, awesome. So now I want to go ahead and dive into a constant trend I see here with the Go Math correlations. What is this and why is this important?
Those are the lessons from the Go Math textbook that correlate with the identified standards.
Okay.
And these are very important because, like I said before, we have some veteran teachers who are pretty much winging it, doing their own thing. They have the resources that they use that they're comfortable with, but we do have some novice teachers that need just a little bit more guidance. So we wanted to make sure that we included those Go Math lessons in the document as well.
Awesome. Now here I see like a mid-unit assessment, teacher design. Then I see a unit test, Go Math. Likewise up here I see a mid-unit, but then this one says Go Math, page 77 through 78 in the unit test. Why are these particularly different?
We found that for some of the standards, the way that they were separated, the Go Math book was the perfect resource to actually do that mid-unit assessment before you moved on to the next set of lessons. So we were able to find some of those documents in the Go Math book. Some of the documents were not there. And so we're leaving that to the teachers and their creativity to design something that will be perfect for their students.
Awesome. Awesome.
But
So
again, these are just suggested resources.
awesome. Awesome. I love that these are suggested resources and that you all took the time out to actually go in and see what actually correlates with the standards. With that, I want to move over here to this other column you all have for assessments. I see something called form. First, I see a pre-tax 2.1. What is that and where can I find it?
If you scroll down to the next page, you'll actually see the pre-task. So there's a pre-task as well as a post-task. They are the same. Of course, one is going to be given to the students before the lessons are taught, and the next time the students will see it will be at the conclusion of the lesson. So this is just the big idea. This is what the student should be able to do independently. The pre-task actually gives you an opportunity to see what the students are coming to the table with, what they currently understand about the standards you are getting ready to teach. And the post-task actually gives you an opportunity of what students are able to do independently. And we try to make these as closely aligned with the ACAP questions as we could. So if you take a look, you'll see that all of them are open-ended.
Awesome. This is fantastic. I do have a quick question about the pre and post task. When would you recommend giving the pre-task and the post-task, and how long does these tasks normally take?
The pre-task, I would provide that to the students before the information is taught. Before you begin your first lesson, before you teach your vocabulary, it's the first thing that you do before you begin a new unit. And I would allow, it really depends on the task because some of them will take longer than others depending on the standard.
Okay.
Anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes. And of course, there's no collaboration allowed on this because this should be what the students are able to complete independently.
That is awesome. And just going through the questions, they look like some high quality questions. And I want to highlight something that I think you said. You said that these tasks were in alignment with some type of test. What test was that?
ACAP, the standardized test that the state of Alabama has adopted for measuring student proficiency.
Awesome. So in order for the teachers to be able to do these tasks, would they just print them off or what does that look like?
I think they should print them. Well, you know, but with the pandemic and everything going on, I think we have to get a little bit creative on how we are doing this, and if we are working in a virtual environment, I kind of foresee students maybe typing their responses
I like.
or even recording them.
Nice. That is fantastic. So, teachers, fifth grade teachers, I want to go ahead and share with you, you already have your pre and post tasks to assess your students' knowledge. And these questions were designed based on the ACAP assessments and the DOK is it 1 through 3 or 1 through 4?
1 through 3.
1 through 3 questions in which they may ask. So please make sure you're taking full advantage of these pre and post tasks. With that, I now see on the document you have formative assessments. What are formative assessments, and what is up with this list of formative assessments?
The formative assessment list is simply suggested assessments that teachers are able to use to assess students throughout the lesson before they reach the summative assessment. It gives the teacher an opportunity to identify students that are working at mastery level, as well as students who need just a little bit more work, and they're able to provide those remediation activities.
Nice. Well, I love it. What about this next part? It says I can statements.
These are the statements that we develop using the standards. To the left, you'll see content standards. A lot of times those standards can be a little wordy for students. So we wanted to put the I can statements in a format that students can easily understand. We tried our best to make them kid-friendly.
Awesome. So I think we've pretty much covered almost everything in this document. Is there any additional thoughts that you have or anything else that you feel like we need to go ahead and cover while we are inside of this document?
I think it would be a good idea to go ahead and share at the end of the document. There is a page that we titled Useful Links.
So y'all done went and got fancy on us, huh? Let me go.
We're trying to offer as much help as we are able to.
Nice. All right. Useful links and resources. Let's see. Useful links. All right. Go ahead and talk me through the useful links document or part of the document.
Okay, so in the useful links section, we tried to make it user-friendly. We titled each link that is included in the document. For the teachers, we included some additional math workbooks from Harcourt Publishing, the older green textbook. We included that workbook, as well as the newer McGraw-Hill practice workbook, as well as the reteaching workbook. And we also included a 6th grade math minute tab, which is after viewing the problems, that is appropriate for 5th grade.
So in order for someone to access this, what would they need to do?
Simply double click the link. You can go ahead and try one.
All right, let me go and see what's going to happen. Open the link up. Drum roll, please. Oh, this must be a good document. It's taking a little while to load. All right. Whoa. So can you share, first question I want to ask, can you share this link with students?
Yes, you're able to share this link with students as well as parents.
Awesome. Are you able to download these pages as PDFs?
Yes, you are able to download the individual pages as PDF, drop them into a Google Slides presentation, and simply make the page fillable where students are able to submit their responses.
That sounds like you all are preparing for virtual learning. With that, let's go ahead and go to this next part of the useful links, the testing and assessments.
For the testing and assessment section, we included some educational websites like Edulastic that teachers are able to use to develop standards-based assessments with rigor.
All right, standards-based. And in order to open these links, I would do the same thing, correct?
That's correct. Simply double-click the link.
Awesome. Now, how did you all decide what would be a good testing or assessment resource?
Again, we used our prior knowledge from being fifth grade math teachers. And we also took a look at some other states and the resources that they were using to prepare students for standards-based assessments.
Nice, nice. The next one that I see here is fluency practice. What is fluency practice?
Simply practice with the basic facts. This would be a great resource to share with parents as well.
Awesome, awesome. Now this one looks a little interesting, and I see it as titled Instructional Websites and Documents. What could these links be used for, and why are they important?
These links can be used by teachers for developing their weekly lesson plans.
Nice.
So if a teacher is looking for a specific lesson or looking for a specific DOK question, they can use these links to assist them in developing their plans.
Awesome. And I love that you all added the Alabama Insight tool as well as the flip book. Fantastic, fantastic. With it, let's go ahead and go to the online review applications. Now, what are these online review applications?
The online review applications are tools that teachers are able to use to present the information to students in a fun format. It gives the students an opportunity to practice the skill as well as the standards, but using games and other tools.
Awesome, awesome. I love what you all are doing. With that, I see our last link is Interactive Standards Review. Tell me a little bit about what is Interactive Standards Review and how did you all go about choosing these two links?
The Interactive Standards Review tab is simply a tab that gives teachers an opportunity to practice all of the fifth grade math standards with the entire class, or either assign those standards to the independent students. If you go ahead and click on the I Know It Math tab, we can take them through that one so they can see how it works.
All right. So I'm in I Know It, and it says select a grade and try a lesson. I'm assuming fifth grade is where we're
Fifth grade. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And you'll see that all of the standards have been organized.
Nice. Fractions, adding and subtracting with decimals. We have adding mixed numbers. Wow, this is really nice. Is it okay if I go ahead and click on one?
Sure, go ahead, try it out.
All right. With unlike denominators. Nice, and I'm just gonna get something wrong, guys. Pardon me, I am not a math teacher. And then it gives you an explanation there following.
It does.
All right, and simplify if possible. Let's get back to the document. This looks pretty cool. All right, so we went over the useful links as well as the document. Anything else that you feel like we need to go over before we set every fifth grade teacher free, or any last minute remarks?
No, I think all teachers should be ready to go forth and teach.
All right, so guys, you heard it here first from one of the authors of this document, Ms. French. You all are now ready to go forth and conquer. Remember, use all of the links, play with the links, as well as the useful tools at on the last page of this document. It looks like to me, Ms. French, honestly, fifth grade teachers already have a lesson plan drawn out for the school year.
That was our plan when we started working on the document.
And
we wanted to make sure that the teachers had their lesson plans for the year.
Yes, well, you have definitely done an excellent job. With that, we want to say, Montgomery fifth grade math teachers, we hope you all are able to fluently and easily, effectively use this math pacing guide to guide your instruction. Have a great 2021 school year. And remember, if we go virtual, this document is still useful for you. We hope you enjoyed and learned how to best utilize the fifth grade math pacing guide. Best of luck this 2020-2021 academic school year.
Thank you all so much for that wonderful explanation of the fifth grade pacing guide. I know y'all put in a lot of sweat and tears as you all not only developed the pacing guide, but provided a detailed video to show how to navigate through that pacing guide. And I especially like the resources and the links that you all put in there to ensure that just in case or if we have to shut down again, our parents can follow that pacing guide and provide our students with the resources that they need to be successful at home as well. Once again, kudos to you two, and thank you so much. All right, so now let's look at the why. Why do we have a course of study? And what is the backbone to this course of study? So the backbone is actually the framework. So let's take a look at this graphic right here. And I'm just going to read it off of page 3 if you want to follow along with me. But I'm not going to read all of it, just some of the key points. So on page 3, we're talking about the 2019 Alabama course of study for mathematics. The conceptual framework. This is the why. The conceptual framework, if you will look at that graphic, it illustrates the purpose of the 2019 Alabama course of study, which is to ensure that all students receive the mathematics preparation they need to access further educational and professional opportunities to understand and critique the world around them, and as well as to experience joy, wonder, and beauty of mathematics. Now, look at the design. You see it? There's a circle in front of the great state of Alabama silhouette. This purpose is depicted by a cyclical pattern formed by the position statements, the content, the student mathematical practices, and the mathematics teaching practices that contribute to the development of the mathematically prepared graduate represented by the diploma and mortarboard in the center. Now, while this is on my mind, remember, we are transitioning, in the process of transitioning, the 2019 Alabama course of study. If you look at the 2016 Alabama course of study for mathematics, it will call these the standards for mathematical practices. Standards for mathematical practices. But the 2019 course of study, the practices are the same. I'll just go ahead and tell you that now. The practices are the same, but the name has changed to student mathematical practices. Okay? Instead of standards for mathematical practices, the new course of studies named them as student mathematical practices. And we're going to do an activity on this. It's linked in the Padlet. So if you will pull up the Padlet that's talking about the standards for mathematical practices, I will give you about 7 minutes to complete that assignment. And we're back. I know, you did not need the whole 7 minutes to complete that task. It's only 2 questions, and because you all are magnificent, you probably finished in about 2 minutes. However, I know that you all are champions and you are up for a challenge. Let's see what we know about the standards for mathematical practices by playing a simple Kahoot game. Now, I'm doing this because I want you all to implement some of the things that we're doing in this session into your virtual world, okay? I know a lot of us think that game-based activities are simply games the kids like to play, but no, we're going to use this particular game for a formative assessment. And just to make it a little bit more interesting, if you are the top participant, I am going to email you a simple certificate of excellence. Now, you can take that certificate and change it and modify it, and you can share that with your students as they find success in your virtual classroom. So, here we go. If you would please go to www.kahoot.it, that is kahoot.it. The game pin is 3578104. Now remember, this is a self-paced activity. I know that many of you all probably played this game live with your students when we were in class, but guess what? The students can play this game from a distance. You can set it up for the duration of time that you want it to be live for your students or open for your students. Okay, so let's give it a try. Once again, it is www.kahoot.it. The game pin is well, you can see it, but I'll say it anyway. 3578104. Let's go, you rock. Here's the challenge. The next component of the SAGO consists of the 8 mathematics teaching practice, which should be consistent components of every mathematics lesson across grades K through 12. So these practices are, you can see it on the slide, and we do have an activity to support this, but these practices are: number 1, establish mathematic goals to focus learning. Implement tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving. Use and connect mathematical representations. Facilitate meaningful mathematical discourse. Pose purposeful questions. Build procedural fluency from conceptual understanding. Support productive struggle in learning mathematics. That's a hard one, especially for an elementary teacher. And the last one is to elicit and use evidence of student thinking. Now, I made it easy for you. The Padlet, once you open the Padlet, you will see teacher mathematical practices in there. I listed what the teacher should be doing. If you could just connect the practice to what the teacher should be doing, then this task will be considered a huge success. Now, here's the thing with this activity. I like to call it grab a box. Well, I do call it grab a box. So guess what? I know that we have all of our elementary teachers working on this, but you only have 8 mathematical teaching practices, and you only have 8 boxes to grab. Okay, so if you want to share a box with someone, that's fine, but the first 8 participants to fill a box will be considered a box or a grab a box champion. All right, so have fun with this. You all can collaborate on this. I think it's a great way for us to understand how we should implement those practices in the classroom. So go ahead and pause the video here and go to your Padlet, and let's work on the grab a box activity. Thank you. Mathematics is critical for the future success of each and every student in Alabama. enabling them to expand their professional opportunities, understand and critique the world, and experience the joy, wonder, and beauty of mathematics. To help students achieve this goal, schools should implement the 6 position statements which outline foundational practices to ensure excellence in Alabama mathematics programs. Position statement number 1, access and equity in mathematics education. Access and equity in mathematics at the school and classroom levels is found on beliefs and practices that empower each and every student to participate meaningfully in learning mathematics and to achieve outcomes in mathematics that are not predicted by or associated with student characteristics.
There's so much happening in the early years of school that at times it's hard to make sense of it all. So here's my attempt to make sense of the progression of addition and subtraction. So addition and subtraction begin in kindergarten when students begin to count. They begin to count objects and sets. They do this by counting forwards, and they also do it by counting backwards. A big thing to remember is when we're counting forwards or backwards that we include the number 0. And when we're counting backwards, let's not have them include blast off, because blast off isn't necessarily a number. As students work on counting, they begin to count sets. So here a student will have 4 in one hand, 3 in another hand, and they're not able to put those two sets together. There'll always be a set of 4 and a set of 3. Then as students move from counting sets to joining sets, they're able to combine the 4 and 3. So 4 and 3 more is 7, or 4 plus 3 is 7. As students begin to work on this idea of joining sets, we introduce 5 frames. And to be honest, I don't know if they get enough play in the early grades. So we'll have 4 and 3, and students begin to build an understanding of 5 frames and filling up a 5 frame. Students can see that 4 plus 3 is the same as 5 plus 2. And this understanding will build with students when they begin to use 10 frames later on. So in terms of subtracting, students can have 4 minus 3 and use a separate model, or they can also use a compare model. The big piece here is that a context should always drive the strategy that students are using. So as students are working on addition and subtraction, they're simultaneously working on this understanding of counting and collecting and grouping things in 10. So here 13 could be seen and should be seen as 10 and 3 more, or 10 plus 3. It's here that this whole idea of unitizing is introduced. It's massive, and we need to make sure that students don't leave kindergarten and first grade without this understanding conceptually. So as students dive into first grade, they begin to explore sums greater than 10. So what might that look like? Well, here, a student can take 9 plus 7, model it with a 10 frame, and because they've worked on this idea of unitizing, or they're beginning to, they know that it's most efficient to, say, fill up a 10 frame. So they take 1 from the 7, give it to the 9 to make a 10, and they're left with 6. Here students are beginning to think flexibly about numbers, and the same understanding applies to double-digit numbers. The big piece here is that students, as long as they're using concrete models, they're also drawing representations. So what did we do? We want to make a 10. So we're going to take our 1s and bundle them up to make another 10. Decompose the 8 into a 3 and a 5, give 3 to the 37 to make 40, and have 5 more. So what does this look like with subtraction in first grade? Well, in first grade, students are only subtracting multiples of 10. And here, 37 minus 20, they can see if they remove 2 10s, they're left with 17. So what happens in second grade? How does this build on what they've learned in first grade? Well, they might use 2 two-digit numbers. And here is where we begin to introduce base 10 blocks because of that whole idea of unitizing that students are still developing in kindergarten and first. Again, just like before, we'll draw a representation for our model. We'll create another bundle of 10. And here's how students can begin to move from the concrete to the representation to the abstract. Now, it might not be efficient, or students might see that it's not efficient to write it out on the side all the time. So, to become more efficient, they can begin to use this understanding of partial sums and find a shortcut. 8 plus 3 is 11, 40 plus 30 is 70. And this understanding of partial sums, well, it leads brilliantly into their understanding that they begin to develop with partial products in fourth grade. So that works for addition, but does it work for subtraction? Well, we want to try and use models that continue to work the same and consistently throughout math. We don't want them to expire. So here we want to have 83, and we'll go back to that separating model. We want to put 29 inside there. Well, we need 6 more. So this is a really big understanding for students where they make that fair trade and that idea of unitizing. So now we can take the 6 from the 10 and we're left with 4. So how can we move again from the concrete to the representation to the abstract? Again, everything that we're doing here and all the work that we're doing, we're not undermining place value. And what's great is that this model, this understanding that we're building, well, it also applies to larger numbers as well. Now we can use place value mats, we can use just open sheets of paper such as this, but anyway, students are still acting out that fair trade and they're making sense, the regrouping of numbers. So what does this look like as we begin to write it as an algorithm? We'll regroup the 20 into a 10 in another group. It's all about students seeing the math conceptually, and we're not undermining place value. So as students dive into 3rd and 4th grade, they have 2 years to begin to formalize this understanding of subtraction and addition with regrouping and unitizing. But the big thing is that it's built through conceptual understanding. The standard algorithm isn't an expectation until the end of 4th grade, right before students dive into decimals with 5th grade. And you know what? In 3rd and 4th grade, if students need to use expanded form to make sense of what they're doing, let them do it. It's all about the conceptual understanding and allowing students to visualize the math. So there's lots happening. As we've said before, let's take our time. The turtle won the race. Love to continue the conversation on Twitter or hit me up on my blog. Thanks for watching.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Dees, and I teach 3rd grade at Halcyon Elementary School.
Hello, my name is Katura Mays, and I teach 3rd grade at Morning View Elementary School.
And we are your 3rd grade Curriculum Frameworks team. I am going to turn it over to Miss Mays and let her start explaining the second 9 weeks framework.
Hello, everyone. If you notice at the top of your frameworks, the categories are week, standard, Go Math lessons, vocabulary, and additional resources. The first thing that we want to point out to you guys is that everything that has blue font is a link to that resource. So if we start off with the standards, you will see that the Math 3 flipbook is there. That is there for you to find your mathematical practices and any other additional things that you may need to help you teach your lesson. If you go to additional resources, you will see that there are links to several things that you may need on a daily basis, such as the Go Math Student Book, the Go Math Practice Book, Mega Math Activities, a Daily Math Warm-Up PDF file, and a Multiplication Fat Fluency PDF file. Look under week 1 and you'll see Administer Multiplication Fat Fluency Quiz. That is a quiz that is there for every single week in the second 9 weeks, and those quizzes were developed from quizzes.com. So there's a link there so that you can do that with your students. And the last thing that I want to share with you guys is about the vocabulary cards. We have already done the footwork for you guys. The vocabulary cards are there for you. You can project them to share with your students. You can print them off and cut them out and put them on your Word wall. Lastly, I'm going to give this over to Ms. Dees to finish with the curriculum guide.
Okay, also under additional resources, you will see discussion slides that you can project in your classroom and use as a whole group resource. You will also, on some of the other 9 weeks, you will find some math tasks that will also be very beneficial to use in your classroom. And last, personally my favorite, we took out some of the work for you, and we have created 4 assessments for each 9 weeks. And as you know, we are required to have 9 minor and 4 major grades for each 9 weeks. We have created the 4 major grades if you would like to use them. They are made in Google Classroom, so you can click on the link, easily assign it in Google Classroom. If you want to do it digitally, it will grade it for you. And you can also print if you prefer paper and pencil. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions at all, my email address is jasmine.dees@mps.k12.al.us, and Miss Mace, her email is katura.mace@mps.k12.al.us. Thanks again.
So here's my attempt to explain the progression of multiplication. Well, most of us might think it starts in 3rd grade, but in actuality, it starts in 2nd grade, where students are expected to take a square or a rectangle and partition that square into no more than 5 rows or 5 columns. Here, the understanding of repeated addition is established. 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 25. Then, in 3rd grade, students take that understanding they've begun to develop in 2nd grade and begin to construct arrays using square color tiles, or any manipulative for that matter. The important piece is once they've actually constructed that model, they draw a pictorial representation which matches their model. Here we have 4 rows of 6, or it could also be seen as 6 rows of 4, depending on how you turn the model. And the big piece here is that we don't push an understanding on students, we let students explain what their model represents. The big piece is that the context will explain the equation, not the teacher. Then we take that understanding and we come back to the biggest piece probably in 3rd grade, which is that there's a relationship happening here. And that relationship is taking place between multiplication and division. Take this, for example. 12 divided by 4 is a number. 4 times what number is 12? Well, if we take 12 tiles and we put them in 4 rows until we run out, we actually see that we have 3 in each row. So there's a connection between multiplication and division, and arrays can be used for both. The context. Yep, let's go back to it. Here's a simple one. There were 3 packs of pencils. Each pack had 40 pencils. Well, at the beginning part of multiplication, students might do something like this, where they draw out 3 circles, and in each circle they put in 4 10 rods, so 40. Or they could actually go ahead and draw 40 little pencils. That's great. But the standards of mathematical practice, and in particular number 7, want us to be efficient. And one way to do that is we can begin to make use of structure. And when we do, we make sense of it. Here we begin to create an area model for multiplication, very much like an array, just on a bigger scale with larger numbers. So 3 times 40, we take it, build it out of 10 rods. We have 10 tens, which is 100, plus 20 is 120. Or it could also be seen as 12 tens. Really big understanding for students. Once students have established this, they should be diving into drawing pictorial models for what they're concrete. Again, we don't want them to be sitting there with manipulatives all the time. So we move them away and they begin to draw a pictorial representation for what their concrete model looks like. Then from there, we'll have them use numbers to represent their picture. All of the time, connections are being made. Then, eventually, after multiplying all of these ones and tens, students begin to collect and group numbers together. Now we're beginning to become efficient thinkers. The connections are being made all around because students are exploring. In 4th grade, students are expected to multiply 2-digit by 2-digit numbers. So what does this look like with a concrete model? Well, it kind of looks the same, really. So we have 23 across the top and 22 down the side. 10 times 10 is 100, and that's where those 100 plates come into play. Then, once students have gone ahead and actually built a model, they see that they have 4 hundreds, 10 tens, 6 ones, and they add that all together, 506. Then, just like we did with smaller numbers, we expect that students should draw a pictorial representation which matches their concrete model. You can see the 100 plates, the 10 rods, and the 6 ones. There they are. Altogether, 506. And just like before, we'll ask that students go ahead and start using tens and numbers to actually represent their model. So what you're probably thinking right now is this is not efficient. There's too many tens going on here, too many ones, and students are going to get confused. And you know what? You're absolutely right. And it's at this point where kids say, this sucks. We need to find a shortcut. So what do? They begin to group and collect their numbers just like they did before. So here we have the box method. But in reality, it's partial products. So let's not call it the box method anymore and start calling it by its real name. Then we take that partial product understanding and we begin to formalize it into some kind of standard algorithm. Yep, this is a standard algorithm. It's a series of repeated steps. And you can see where each of the numbers come from. Then we have the algorithm that we're all pretty much used to. But you see that 0? Now the connection is made and students know why we magically put that 0 there. But all this understanding happens at the end of 5th grade. Let's not rush them. There's so much happening here and so much to explore. Let's slow down a little bit.
All right, so let's take a look at one of the 1st grade standards. Here you will find the Alabama content areas, the clusters, the content standards, as well as the standard number. Now, the Alabama content areas are large groups of related clusters and content standards. If you look at the example on the slide, the Alabama content area is operations with numbers base 10. Standards from different Alabama content areas may be closely related here. The clusters group related content standards. The cluster on this slide is extend the counting sequence. Because mathematics is a connected subject, standards from different clusters may sometimes be closely related. And the content standards, which is to the right of each cluster, contain the minimum required content and define what students should know and be able to do at the end of a course or grade. Some will have sub-standards indicated with A, B, C, D, which are extensions of the content standards and are also required. Some standards are followed by examples, which are not required to be taught. When standards indicate that drawings may be used, the drawings may need to show detail, but should show the mathematics in the problem. The order in which are listed within the course or grade is not intended to convey a sequence for instruction. Each content standard completes the STEM students' will. Here is the kindergarten mathematics overview. In kindergarten, instructional time should focus on 2 critical areas. Number 1, developing a sound sense of numbers by representing and comparing numbers using sets of objects. And number 2, recognizing and describing shapes and using spatial reasoning. In grade 1, instructional time should focus on 4 critical areas. Number 1, developing understanding of addition, subtraction, and strategies for addition and subtraction within 20. Number 2, developing understanding of whole number relationships and place value, including grouping in tens and ones. Number 3, developing understanding of linear measurement and measuring lengths as iterating length units. And lastly, reasoning about attributes of and composing and decomposing geometric shapes. In grade 2, instructional time should focus on 4 critical areas: building fluency with addition and subtraction, extending understanding of base 10 notation, using standard units of measure, and describing and analyzing shapes. In grade 3, instructional time should focus also on 4 critical areas: developing understanding of multiplication and division and strategies for multiplication and division within 100. Developing understanding of fractions, especially unit fractions, fractions with numerator 1. Also, developing understanding of the structure of rectangular arrays and of area, and describing and analyzing 2-dimensional shapes. In grade 4, instructional time should focus on 3 areas: developing understanding and fluency with multi-digit multiplication and understanding of division to find quotients involving multi-digit dividends, developing an understanding of fraction equivalence, addition and subtraction of fractions with like denominators, and multiplication of fractions by whole numbers. And lastly, understanding that geometric figures can be analyzed and classified based on their properties, such as having parallel sides, perpendicular sides, particular angle measures, or symmetry. In grade 5, instructional time should focus on 3 critical areas: developing fluency with addition and subtraction of fractions, and developing understanding of the multiplication of fractions and of division of fractions. In limited cases, unit fractions divided by whole numbers and whole numbers divided by unit fractions. Also, extending division now to a 2-digit divisor, integrating decimals into the place value system, and developing understanding of operations with decimals to the hundredths place. Also developing fluency with whole number and decimal operations. And lastly, developing understanding of, guess what? Volume. Here you will find the critical standards for grades K through 8. These standards has been identified by the State Department of Education as the standards that are most critical for students to be successful in mathematics. Lastly, we have included the crosswalks from the 2016 revised mathematics course of study to the 2019 Alabama math course of study. This is a side-by-side comparison of what the standards look like and how they compare and contrast from one course of study to the next. You can find this on our shared drive in our Google folders. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed. And guess what? You rock.